Good morning.
Senator Gooch.
How you doing this morning, Brian?
Hey, how are you doing, sir? We appreciate you talking to us this morning. I sent you a couple messages, and I know you told me to call you to remind you. I know how busy you are under the Gold Dome there, so I know you're going to tell me in a minute you have to rush off to a meeting, correct?
Well, I'm actually walking across the street. I'm going to a meeting, and I'm hoping I don't get run over out here. I want to tell down here in hot Atlanta.
I want to tell my listeners, the senator is, when I get a chance to talk to him, the senator is always late for a meeting, rushing to a meeting, but he does always take time to stop and talk with me. So I appreciate that. So,
well, I really want to take time to talk to Lisa, but I'll talk to you too.
Okay. Okay. All right. We just finished talking, Senator, and what we're doing this morning is we just finished talking to Commission Chair Charlie Paris, and he has shared his views of the transportation bill on the local level. So later today, you can listen to that. We'll put it back up online. We want to ask you to give us a summary of the Transportation Funding Act, and I want to give you a fair chance to we've read everything that's coming out in articles all over the state to explain this Transportation Funding Act to us.
Well, first of all, I appreciate Commission Chairman Paris's position in it, because I was a sole county commissioner in Lumpkin County 14 years ago, so I feel his pain. And secondly, that is a House bill that was introduced last week in the House, so in all fairness, it's not a bill that's in the Senate yet, so I can't tell you for sure what's going to happen to it in the House. It hasn't even been heard in committee yet. So I imagine there'll be a lot of debate, there'll be a lot of discussion with some potential changes coming. So your local governments are upset. They're worried about the shift of the money that would be occurring under the bill the way it's currently written. And I understand that, totally understand it. So I don't know if that bill will continue through the process in its same format and without being changed. So just to say that, I'll be glad to address any part of it you want. But the bottom line is, as you and I talked a few weeks ago at the Capitol, the state has a lot of needs in infrastructure and transportation, and the funding is just not adequate to continue to move Georgia forward as fast as we're growing as a state. We have 10 million people in Georgia today, and we have roads that basically haven't been expanded in 20 years. So we've got a lot of needs and a lot of challenges in our state government, and transportation is one of the most important ones right now, because it's going to deal with the future growth and job development in Georgia.
Well, I think you just hit on it, Senator, what Mr. Paris and a lot of local, and I'm glad you said that, and you acknowledged that. Mr. Paris said he was in an email loop with several elected officials. We didn't bring any names up, but a lot of people, are you hearing from a lot of commissioners, school boards? Are you hearing from a lot of those people around the state concerning this bill?
I've talked to one superintendent, and I've talked to probably a half dozen, maybe 8 county commissioners, but more importantly, I've talked to their associations that are down here at the Capitol. So, like the Association of County Commissioners, the Georgia Municipal Association, their full-time lobbyists are here in the building every day, and they're very alert and attentive to the bill. They're in all the meetings. They're being engaged in this fully. So this thing is far from being over. It's just the beginning. The bill's just been introduced. There's a lot of work that has to be done on it. So at this point, I would recommend that the county commissioners and the city council members not panic, but stay involved, get in touch with their legislators, come down to Atlanta and participate in the process.
Senator, let's talk about the fourth penny. The fourth penny would be designated solely to transportation. Okay, when the lawmakers went from 3% to 4% in the 90s, they decided not to dedicate the additional roads and bridges as the first portion, and there's roughly $175 million of that in that one penny. There was education, healthcare, public safety, non-transportation aspects of the general budget was in that penny. So if you dedicate that fourth penny, and if I'm reading this right, that fourth penny moves solely to transportation, correct?
That's correct. When you get rid of the sales tax and it becomes a motor fuel tax, the fourth penny is no longer relevant. It's gone.
It's gone. Okay. That's 100. When you say that like that, sir, that's 175 million. This is an article I'm reading, so I'm just saying this is what I'm seeing. 175 million is moved over, roughly around 200 million. I've heard from other accounts. What's that going to cut? I mean, what areas of will that hurt other areas in the general budget, from public safety to health care to non-transportation aspects of that fourth penny? What happens to that?
Well, that's where you have to set priorities, Brian, just like you do at home. If you go home tonight and Lisa tells you that you no longer have, your income that it was last year, then you've got to sit down at the coffee table with her and you've got to decide what are we going to do without next year. And so just like during the recession, the state lost $5 billion in revenue. The state lawmakers back in 2007 and 8 had to trim about $5 billion out of the budget. And that wasn't a fun process, but it had to be done. The same thing will have to be done here. $175 million isn't anything like $5 billion, but it's still significant because it's money that's being spent in other areas like education, public safety, corrections, or whatever. So, it's going to be an issue. We're going to have to decide where to cut, but you can also absorb it through growth. I think we've seen 5% growth in the state budgets for the last 3 years. We're seeing a little more than 7% growth right now in the state budget. So I believe this year's growth alone will absorb the $175 million if we decide that's where we want to take the money.
But the fourth penny, the fourth penny is the fourth penny, and that growth would move over to transportation. And I think there's even the Georgia State School Board Association has come out pretty strong with some language concerning this. Have you read that?
No, sir, I have not. I haven't seen it.
All right. Well, I know the story. I've read the language the other day where they came out with a pretty strong statement. The Georgia School Board Association warned local school boards late Wednesday that a plan would cost local school districts about $172 million a year. So, and you've not seen that?
No, sir, I have not seen it.
All right. Well, say in the fourth penny, and I know you've answered that. How about the? And I know this is a House bill, and I can appreciate it's not come over and they're working through it, and it might get chopped up. But section, you had to have read it. I know that because you got to be prepared when it comes over. So in section 4.1. If you don't know this today or haven't had an opportunity to look into it, would you get back to us on Part B, sales of motor fuel other than gasoline? Because the way this is written in Section 4.2, Senator, Part B, that could possibly go as far as propane in your homes. It's a non-motor. Have you looked at that?
No, I have not, but I can assure you that we're not assessing an excise tax on any fuel other than what would be burnt in your vehicle. Now, your propane cars and your electric cars and your natural gas cars are going to be put into this bill, and there's language in there that will assess a fee for those alternative fuel vehicles. Today, electric cars do not use gasoline to operate on the road, so therefore the people using the roads in an electric car do not pay any taxes to use those roads like we do in our cars that burn gasoline or diesel. So there is a fee proposed in that bill of I think $200 if you own an electric vehicle or if you have a car that's powered by natural gas or propane. So that may be the language you're referring to.
Okay, well, what about what is being discussed heavily, the splost penny? How does that move over? Tell us how that moves over into the excise tax of the per gallon. How does that splost penny move over? And for my listeners, and you know this, that penny gets voted on, and when it expires, the splost expires, it would then move over into the excise tax?
Yes, sir. What would happen there is is just like any other exemption. There are numerous exemptions to the sales tax code in Georgia, especially with this SPLOST. Things that don't apply to the sales tax don't apply to their purchase. So in this situation, you would simply phase out the sales tax on gasoline at the time the current SPLOST would expire. So before the next SPLOST would begin, the county commissioners or the school board members or city council members would simply create their new projections based on the sales of goods in their community, excluding the sale of motor fuel. So that would basically give them time to prepare for that loss of revenue in those SPLOST projections. But the bill also, the way it's written by the House right now, it would allow the county commissioners or the city council members to basically replace that lost revenue with an additional excise tax on their gasoline at the local level. So they're given a provision in there to replace that. At the same time they're given the provision to recreate a new SPLOST, they would also add a provision in their local ordinance that would add the 3 cents that they lost on their gasoline sale.
Well, let me ask you, put it in terms, Senator, for those out there. You know me pretty well. I'm just a simple guy. Put it in simple terms for me. We vote on a penny. Okay, we vote on a penny and we say you can have this penny for SPLOST or education, and the voters vote on that. Now, when that expires, there'll be an exemption for motor fuel. That penny will not come back in the next SPLOST for motor fuel. But that penny will then, the balance of that penny does get moved over to the state excise tax, correct?
That's correct. Under the current language in the current House bill, that's correct.
Well, then are you not, I'm sorry, then are you not raising taxes? Well, because if that penny moves, today the citizens have to approve that. So let's say they approve a penny, and today they're getting a penny off motor fuel. Right? If we go over and pump a gallon of gas, the SPLOST or e-SPLOST, they're getting a penny off of motor fuel today, correct? Uh-huh. And that's something the citizens voted and said they wanted. They imposed the tax on themselves, like we started earlier. Okay, they said okay to that. But in the next SPLOST, that motor fuel is going to be an exemption.
Right.
But that portion of that penny will still be at the pump.
That's right.
So, not you directly, sir, but are you not raising taxes without asking? Those were my words, and I apologize if I went down a direction, but that's what I'm hearing. So I just want to share that. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, here's the bottom line, Brian, and nobody has passed the bill yet. No one's voted on anything, but here's the bottom line. We need more money for transportation. The taxpayers don't want to pay more taxes. We hear that loud and clear. But what they are telling us loud and clear is, let's use the money you're collecting on transportation first. And so a lot of these sales tax proceeds are going places like the state budget and like some of the local governments, and they're not being used for transportation. So the intent of this bill is to first and foremost make sure every dollar that's being taxed on motor fuel gets put into transportation in Georgia. So that's the first priority that I want to see done, and I think you're seeing that in this bill, with the fourth penny being evaporated basically and being converted to motor fuel. That guarantees that it goes to the DOT. If you take the sales tax off of motor fuel and convert it to an excise tax, that also guarantees that that money gets spent on transportation. Now, if you want to talk about adding additional pennies and what have you going forward, then yes, that would be where the local people would vote by referendum to increase that motor fuel tax for those projects in their community. So I think I could see both points, and I see your argument on that. But the first thing we want to do is make sure that every penny that we collect gets spent on transportation, and we want the people that are using the roads to pay for the roads. I don't want to see that being spent on other things, and I don't want other people to have to pay for those projects either. So I want to see a user fee. People using the roads pay for the roads, and that's why the electric cars and the hybrids are so important, that they become part of the system as well.
I want just one more minute on this, but I don't want to leave today, and I know you're busy, sir, and I appreciate it, but I don't want to leave today without you telling us about a Senate bill that the media is not looking at that you think is important to the citizens of Georgia that is being overlooked? So I don't want to leave without that today. But what I want to ask you one more thing is, most of the local communities now, I would say overwhelmingly vote their SPLOST in. They see it by school buses. There's the argument that when people come in to visit, they help fund things. So the SPLOST usually gets voted in. But I guess the one thing is, what if it didn't get voted in next time? The state still is going to get that portion of the penny, or they don't get that portion. So that might be my thought. What if that SPLOST don't get voted in next time? So that's just a thought there. They are able to raise the fuel tax 6 cents. The county can. They can do an additional 6 cents, 3 in a referendum right now, and 3, by imposing it. But what you're telling me is, what you want to see first is when we go over and pump a gallon of gas, the excise tax on that gas in the state of Georgia goes 100% for transportation. Is that what I heard?
That's correct.
And that's your overall position?
Sir?
That's your overall position.
That's my position today. Is if we pay tax on gasoline, then in accordance with the Constitution, all sales tax, all motor fuel tax derived from the sale of motor fuel shall be spent on roads and bridges and transportation. That's the wording that comes out of the Georgia State Constitution, and I believe that we have some work to do to make that happen, and that's why we need to move the fourth penny, and that's why we need to convert the sales tax to a motor excise tax as well. So I believe that's first and foremost.
And you're saying in the state of Georgia, this might be a very tough discussion, but it has to be done? Something?
Yes, sir. It's going to be a tough discussion, but we have a lot of those down here on bills, as you know. These things don't happen very easily at times, and I think this is going to be one that's going to require a great deal of debate. We've been working on it since last summer, and we still don't have the answer. I don't think the bill that you have seen introduced today is the bill that will come across the governor's desk. I think there will be changes to it.
I won't ask you that today. I want to thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. I don't want to leave today because it's important, and I know what happens is we get into these bills like the transportation bill, and we get into bills like this, and there's probably some very important bills that are under the radar screen that's important to the citizens of Georgia that doesn't get media time. So which one comes to mind for you, Senator, that you think that you'd like for people to know about or hear about, the Senate bill or the bill that is not getting the media attention it should?
Well, there's going to be a lot of bills introduced, and I've told people this before in town hall meetings. There's 180 House members, and there's 56 senators down here. Every member has the same rights to introduce any legislation that he or she wishes to introduce. That doesn't mean that bill is going to pass. It doesn't even mean that bill will be heard in committee or have a hearing on it. But there are some good bills being introduced this year. The governor has an agenda dealing with education and families and criminal justice and so forth. So I would say pay close attention to the governor's agenda. There's a constitutional amendment proposal that's coming out next week that's going to deal with failing schools. We have some schools in Georgia, not necessarily in North Georgia. We have great schools in North Georgia, but we have schools in Georgia that have failed for 3 or more years in a row, and I think the governor's proposal is going to be very bold, and it's going to allow the state to move in and help manage those school systems to where those children have a better chance of getting a proper education. So that's an emotional issue that's going to come up. You're going to hear a lot of debate about it. We have the medical marijuana bill that's been circulating for about 2 years now. I believe that's coming to the surface this year again. The autism bill already passed the Senate. It goes to the House now for debate and discussion. That's something of importance to families. So there's a lot of good legislation being proposed. There's probably some that's not so good that may or may not get heard, so we'll just have to wait and see. But everybody has their own opinions on what's good and what's bad down here. We try to look at every bill and make sure that it's not going to take away the rights of our people in Georgia, and there's different opinions on that too, depending on which end of the spectrum you're on politically.
Well, I will tell you this: if you go back and listen to my interview this morning, you get an opportunity. Chairman Paris says his quote was, "This bill, in the current form, is a disaster for Gilmer County." So I know on the local level, a lot of these commissioners and Board of Education's school boards and so forth are very concerned, and I know you're looking at all of their concerns when making these decisions. Senator, I appreciate the time. I thank you so much, and I want to share with our viewers and listeners out there. Anytime I ask the senator for some of his time, he always obliges, and I appreciate that. Quickly, what day is Crossover Day, the famous Crossover Day?
Well, Crossover Day is day 30, and to be honest with you, I don't know what day that is on the calendar yet. It may be already published. I haven't even looked at it. You know, I sort of go day to day down here, and I'm the majority whip now, so I'm responsible for moving bills through the Senate and counting to 29. That's what it takes to pass the bill. And so I'm not looking that far out. I'm looking ahead over 3 or 4 days. But I think we're on day 10 today, so we're about 25% of the way through. We're burning days pretty quick down here, so we hope to be out of here by the second day of April. Get home before Good Friday.
I was just letting you know I see you on Crossover Day. That's my favorite day to come down and sit in the well and debate and listen to the debate on the floor. So, Senator, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for your time, and you have a nice day, the best you can in hot Atlanta.
Thank you, sir. Say help to Lisa for me.
I will, sir. Thank you.
All right.